Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the Co-Movement Gym podcast. My name is Andrew Sipley, a longtime passionate health enthusiast and personal trainer. And this week I'm talking with Dr. Stephen Giannopoulos. Dr. G is a renowned, board-certified chiropractic neurologist dedicated to holistic health. With over 25 years of experience, Dr. G is one of America's leading experts in lifelong optimized living. He's trained thousands of clients as well as fellow practitioners and has amassed over 800,000 followers on social media. Our topic this week is the Carnivore Diet. And apparently this is, Dr. G, you told me this, apparently this is World Carnivore Challenge Month. Seems there's a month or a week or a day for everything now.
Yes, of course. But World Carnivore Month is January every year now. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. I wonder who comes up with all these and when they're going to be.
Some influencer on social media, I'm sure.
That's how it usually works, yeah.
The Co-Movement Gym podcast is supported by Native Path Supplements and Lombardi Chiropractic. Mention this podcast or click on the links in the episode description for a nice discount on us.
Well, I'm really excited about this talk. I think the carnivore diet is really fascinating. I've played around with it a little bit in the past. And I think one of the places I wanted to start, one of the reasons I find it so fascinating is because it runs so counter to the narrative that prevails in our culture. The fact that you have to eat your fruits and vegetables or you're going to miss out on all your vitamins and minerals and nutrients. But it seems to me, from what I've seen following the carnivore diet, there's two types of people that promote it. There's the type that says carnivore is a healthy diet and it gives generally positive health outcomes. And then there's the type that says plants are inherently bad and are trying to kill us and poison us, and they should be avoided at all costs. So I think you are something of a proponent of the carnivore diet, maybe not for everybody. But which of those camps do you fall in? Did that ring true to you, that you've seen those two sides of this?
Okay, so it depends on the individual. Look, let's just start with the basics from first principles. We're humans, right? Anyone listening to this is a human. And our species has been shown to not only survive in every environment that exists on this planet, but virtually with, in any climate, right? So we're omnivores. We can not only survive, we can thrive in these different environments. And to say that there is a single diet that is optimal for humans is a little, it kind of violates the first principles, idea where depending on your evolution, depending on your physiology, depending on your geography, depending on the season of the year will determine what your body is best capable of adapting to. So if we were to just go back to pre-civilization, right, and just say, and before the diesel engine could ship bananas to you in February from Honduras, during those times, humans had to not only survive but thrive in whatever environment they were in. So if it's February in northern Canada, and we know there were humans there 10,000 years ago, they thrived. But what did they eat? They weren't eating bananas, I could tell you that, or any kind of vegetation, certainly not in February. But if you're anywhere on the equator, if you live in Ecuador, chances are you're eating vegetation all year round. So we can survive and thrive, which means be healthy, in any of those environments. Now, what is the American environment? Something the world has never seen before, or the Western environment, I should say. And the Western environment is one of incredible abundance in modern day. It's never happened before. In the blink of an eye, 99.9% of human history is what I just described. 0.1% of human history is the last couple of hundred years, where virtually anything that's ever been called food on planet Earth at any time in the last 5,000 years can be found in your supermarket, super cheap at arm's distance, 24 hours a day. So it's that amount of abundance that is causing problems. Sometimes people choose diets because they're trying to solve a problem. Sometimes people choose diets because they're just looking to do something different. I think there's nuance to this conversation because there are people who are metabolically very healthy who are making these choices, and there are people who are metabolically unhealthy who might need to make these choices in order to restore their health. So I'm not a proponent of one diet over another, except for what is the goals of the individual and what is the current state of that individual. Me personally, I thrive on a carnivore-ish diet. And when I say I thrive, that means if I'm having more of a standard diet that includes kind of everything, I tend to have issues with my gastrointestinal system, with inflammation, with weight gain, with my metabolic health. I'm very prone to elevated hemoglobin A1C, which is, insulin resistance. I'm very prone to gaining weight. I'm very prone to inflammation. And therefore, the carnivore diet works very, very well for me. I have completely normal, predictable bowel movements on a carnivore diet, whereas that's not the case on a more traditional diet. So to answer your question in a long and drawn out way, it depends.
Yeah. It sounds like out of those two camps I described, you're more in the carnivore is potentially a way to produce very healthy outcomes. And some people really do thrive on it, as you said that you do, and some of our friends do. But I don't hear you necessarily fear-mongering about plant foods, saying they all need to be eliminated at all costs and that they're completely incompatible with human flourishing, which is a strong message I hear sometimes from some people in the carnivore community. What do you think about that, though? Do plants contain some things that do cause problems in a lot of people, or that maybe some of us should be aware of? Just something to consider. I think of potential toxins or potential anti-nutrients might be a big deal. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so let's dive into that, because I believe I'm one of those people who's sensitive. So I have a long autoimmune phenotype history. I'm 54 years old, but so let's just say 20 years ago, when my son was born, I started to experience a whole lot of health problems that were kind of bizarre because, I always practiced what I preached. I've been a healthcare provider, a chiropractor, since I was 26 years old. So 8 years into my career and practicing what I preach. And again, I kind of always had a silly philosophy that came over from my early 20s, which was, as long as I work out a lot, I can eat whatever I want. So my diet in my 20s, although it was very Mediterranean because I come from a Greek family, I wasn't averse to going to the diner at 4:00 in the morning and having 5,000 calories of fries and gravy and a double cheeseburger deluxe. But again, when you're young and you're hormone sensitive, insulin sensitive, you can do that. But then in my early 30s, I started to have a lot of health problems that were inflammatory, that were kind of migratory and everywhere. It was affecting my gut, my brain. It was affecting all of my joints. I was repeatedly getting injured. I had 3 knee operations in 2 years for really no reason. I would dislocate my shoulder with minimal trigger. And it turns out I had autoimmunity. So I had autoimmunity against my thyroid. I had autoimmunity in my gut. I had autoimmunity that was affecting my connective tissue. So, and when it comes to autoimmunity, it's very rare for somebody who's autoimmune to have just one autoimmune disorder. Usually it's more than one. There are 80 to 100 known autoimmune disorders. There's probably that many unknown. And autoimmunity is skyrocketing, from as far as just statistically over the last decade or two. So with that being said, it took a long time, but I've started just eliminating things. And I eliminated a whole bunch of stuff. And by going on an elimination diet, you do a few things. You eliminate a lot of junk. You eliminate a lot of those toxins and chemicals that you're talking about, whether it be pesticides, et cetera. When you go gluten-free, for example, you're removing packaged, highly processed foods. And who knows what it was? Was it gluten? Was it dairy? Was it egg? Was it soy? Was it pesticides? Was it food processing? I don't know. I went to a more whole food, paleo, autoimmune style diet, and I started to see my health dramatically improve in many ways. So with that being said, when I go back to my childhood and I think about the gastrointestinal issues that I've been experiencing, I just thought they were normal. I never went to a doctor in my life, a pediatrician or anything like that. And I just thought whatever I was experiencing, and it was clearly IBS from the time I was 7 or 8 years old. So whenever your immune system is sensitized to things, whether it be food proteins, chemicals in our food, anything in our air, it's because it's getting through your gastrointestinal system. And from there, that's where, your small intestines is where your outside world, the food you put into your body, and your inside world, your bloodstream, get very close to each other. And when you have an inflammatory condition in your gut, large undigested proteins and things of that nature are going to leak into your bloodstream, getting your immune system to kind of raise its head and say, hey, there's a lot of foreign stuff here that I don't recognize. I'm going to be on alert. So I personally have an immune system that is on alert. What is it on alert for? It's on alert for, well, first of all, anything that's foreign. The immune system is supposed to protect you from the outside world. So your immune system, just think of it as a police force that drives around, and it goes around, it sees things, and it asks itself, is this me or is it not me? Is this my big toe? Is this my pancreas? Is this my eyeball? Yes, leave it alone. And then it swims around and it sees some broccoli or some gluten. And it says, is this me? Well, the answer is no. But then the next question is it safe or is it dangerous? And it should say, well, it's safe, it's food, leave it alone. But what happens to people like me is it'll see that foreign protein and it'll perhaps get confused and say, it's not me, but this molecule looks a lot like that virus I had last year or whatever. So it's in that confusion, it just says, you know what? I can't tell the difference. I'm just going to attack them both. So I'm going to attack the virus when I see it, and I'm going to also attack the food particle. Let's just call it gluten. And that's how food sensitivities start. But that confusion and that elevated level of immune activity, now your immune system starts to see your own tissue, the most common one being your thyroid tissue. And it says, well, I can't tell the difference between the virus, the gluten, and the thyroid protein. I'm just going to attack all three of these proteins. And that's how we develop autoimmunity. So we believe all autoimmunity starts in the gut. Let's go back to your question about plants. Plants are living things. All living things have an evolutionary pressure to survive. And animals like humans and other animals have mechanisms to defend themselves. Muscles, we can run, we can fight, we can bite, we can think, we can do things to survive. But a tomato can't run away from you. It wants to survive too. It wants to make babies. It wants its seeds to plant. But if predators are eating them, they're at risk. So what do? They develop plant defense chemicals. Now, mostly the plant defense chemicals in food are not to protect them from us as predators, but to protect them from insects. Insects are our biggest competitor, but we are predators too. And those chemicals are there. And we've known about this for a long time. Look, when Christopher Columbus came here in 1492, he brought back to Europe tomatoes, white potato, eggplant, and peppers. And these were foreign to the European genotype, and Europeans started eating them, and they became sensitive to them. In Italy, they used to call the tomato the poisonous berry. Even to this day, if you ask an old Italian grandmother how to properly make tomato sauce, she will tell you to peel and de-seed
that's
the
right.
tomato. She doesn't know why she's telling you that, but that's tradition. And that tradition came from the time when, before we were able to hybridize and make these vegetables less offensive to us, they needed to remove the skin and the seeds because that's where the chemicals are that are considered plant defense chemicals. So all plants have that, right? And the truth is 99% of the plants on planet Earth are indigestible to humans. They're either indigestible or poisonous to humans. Huh. So the 1% that we do eat, that we have in our supermarkets, well, it took us 5,000 years to figure out what we can and what we cannot put in our supermarkets. And that's what you see there. It's just 1%. Yeah. The rest of it is either poisonous or indigestible to humans. And that has to do with some of these plant defense chemicals you mentioned before, anti-nutrients, things that are protective to the plant, but disruptive to us. And therefore, there's a belief that people like me with my phenotype, my autoimmune phenotype, are more sensitive to these things. And therefore, by going carnivore, you eliminate them because 100% of animal food is fully digestible and nutritious to humans.
Right.
So that's kind of the long story behind that. Now, I will say that fruits are less so. And the reason why is if an apple falls from an apple tree and lands under the tree, it's not going to make a new tree, right? Because it's in the shade of the tree. It becomes bright and red to attract an animal or a bird to take the apple off the tree, consume the fruit, and allow the seeds to plant somewhere else. So fruit tends to not have that plant defense chemical because it depends on predators to spread the seed, right? Yep. So we know that apple seeds have like cyanide in them, right? So seeds are something you don't want to eat, but the fruit you can eat. So a lot of the carnivores who are not interested in staying in ketosis all the time and want a level of carbohydrate in their diet are kind of carnivore fruitarians, and they do well with that. And then they give themselves an excuse by saying, I can have honey because it comes from a bee. It's still carnivore. And that's fine. I don't disagree with that. I think that's fine. But that's the rationale behind it. The question is, does it relate to you? I know people who go carnivore and their bowels become a mess. They have a hard time digesting and having normal bowel. For me, it's the opposite. If I go vegan, forget it. I'm going to be gassy, bloated all the time. And then once I go carnivore, I'm fine. Some people are the opposite, but I think more people are like me than not, especially the ones who have health challenges that they're trying to fix.
Yeah. And well, like you said, the whole autoimmune issues being on the rise, I don't know, that kind of points to a lot of people might have more issues with plants than the other way around, like you were just saying. So that was fantastic. And I love that you had pointed out, I never really considered the fact that you're right. You know, we think of like plants as something that we can eat. We have them in the supermarket, but that's really only like 0.001% of all plants. If I walk out into the woods, almost all the plants that I find there, the trees and bushes and shrubs and things, I can't eat. They're not edible. All the grasses. So yeah, that is really interesting that we have found some plants that we can eat, but they're so few and far between out in the natural world. And most of them, probably the ones that are healthier for us are, like you said, the ones that the plant wants us to eat, or at least the part of the plant that it wants us to eat, the fruit. It advertises it with bright colors and sweet taste. And yeah, that makes total sense.
Another striking example of that, Andy, is if you want to eat a mushroom and your choice is to get it in the woods behind your house or to get it from the supermarket, well, getting it from the supermarket ensures that you're not going to die.
That's true.
Most mushrooms out in the forest behind, on your property are probably poisonous and will kill you.
That's true. Yeah, good point. So as far as like benefits of the carnivore diet, we talked about reduced pain, inflammation, autoimmune issues. You would think it brought up that you had inflammation in your brain. You thought, were you getting like mental fog? I mean, did this clear up your cognition in some way?
I think when we go into the future, like this, I remember when I was in school, they declared the decade of the 90s, the decade of the brain. And there was a massive amount of investment that was made in researching the brain, and we learned incredible things. I think when it comes to brain health, at this point, understanding your gut is the most important thing, because from a neurological perspective, the largest neural network outside of your brain is in your gut. And the connection between the brain and the gut is so intimate from an immunologic standpoint. So let me give you an example. 85% of the human immune system is in your small intestines. And that's for the reasons we stated before. When, the reason why 85% of the human immune system is in your gut is because that's how the outside world infiltrates to the inside world. So if you're worried about viruses and bacteria and infections, well, you got to think about your gut.
Yeah, you want your immune system on the front line.
Yep. Yeah. Viruses don't enter our body by being injected into your muscle. As a matter of fact, it's so, your skin is a layer of protection, right? Mm-hmm. So when vaccine companies make vaccines, they have to put an adjuvant in the vaccine, which is something that, because again, you're injecting something into a muscle or into your arm. That's not the way these things enter the body. The immune system is not prepared to deal with polio or measles virus that comes in through your muscle. It's prepared to deal with it when it comes in through your mouth. So we put an adjuvant in there, let's just say aluminum, which screams to the immune system, hey, I don't belong here, and there's something, and then the immune system rushes over, and whatever's in that environment, you have an immune response to. That's the science of how they make these things. I don't want to go off on that tangent because we'll probably get deplatformed, but where I was going with that is your immune system is in your gut, and that's also where the greatest connection to your brain is. And the immune system in your brain, those cells are called microglia. They're supposed to be, it's supposed to be a really boring life for them. They should not be sensitized and active. The microglia are there for emergency cases, but really to do a lot of cleanup and maintenance in the brain through your life. It's not, the microglia are not there to deal with viruses and bacteria and all of that. So your bloodstream, if we think about the barriers that you have in your body, you have a barrier, which is, there are three main barriers to the outside world. There's the lining of your lungs, because if I take a deep breath, whatever's in the air in front of me is now in my lungs. So the lining of my lungs has to have integrity. If I eat food, the lining of my gut, that's two. And then anything I bump into, my skin, has to have good integrity. Those are the three main barriers. There is a fourth barrier, and that protects your brain from whatever's in your blood. We call it the blood-brain barrier. That's because even stuff that gets into your blood, we don't want in the brain. So this immune system in the brain should have a very boring existence. Think of them, instead of being police officers, think of them as being like janitors and maintenance workers, just doing cleanup. Right. Scrubbing the floors and polishing the rails and all that stuff. Whereas out in the blood and in those other three barriers, your immune system is more like a police force, because things are more likely to get in. All right. Now, if your gut is sensitized and the immune system in your gut is sensitized, sensing danger, there's going to be a rapid communication to the whole body, but certainly to the brain. And now the microglia are going to be like, oh, this janitorial cleanup function that I have, maybe I need to be more prepared. The body's kind of under attack. Let me pick up a weapon and just become more policeman-like, more security guard-like. And now your brain is far more sensitized to inflammation.
Okay.
And now you can start to develop autoimmunities or just hypersensitivities in your brain, which will lead to dysfunction and brain fog. And some people believe will lead to challenges associated with dementia, degenerative changes, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, etc. But for me personally, and I think for my patients over the last 30 years, their biggest description of that is brain fog, right? That's just that feeling. And the word brain fog is now becoming, we've been using it for 20 years, but it has not been in the lexicon of healthcare, for more than 5 years now. Like, it's really been increasing as autoimmunity has been increasing.
Oh, okay. Very interesting. Wow. Yeah. Thanks for taking us through that. That is one of the most common things I see with people who go on the carnivore diet is that they report better mental clarity and better energy throughout the day. Sometimes alleviation of anxiety or depressive type symptoms. So I think that's a big area of people who get drawn to try carnivore are people who are dealing with those brain health issues, we'll call them.
Isn't that amazing? You're 100% right. So as a clinician, I do recommend carnivore diets to people with significant health challenges of many types, autoimmune being one of them. But there's just so much anecdotal information out there on carnivore diet and bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety. It's actually quite remarkable. And people say anecdotes are not research. Well, they actually are.
Yeah. And on top of that, as far as actual research goes, the ketogenic diet is pretty well established and has a lot supporting it as far as, helping out with brain health and depressive type symptoms and being neuroprotective, that kind of thing. Originally used for helping with seizures, I believe.
Correct.
And the carnivore diet is going to be ketogenic pretty much always.
Always.
Yep. So there's some evidence there.
Always. And it's interesting you say that because what we've discovered is with seizure disorder. So let's just break it down for the listener. We've known that a ketogenic diet helps eliminate seizures in children. We've known that since the 1920s. Mm-hmm. So this is not anything new. And children who are suffering from intractable seizure disorders that are not responsive to anti-seizure medication are put on medically induced ketogenic diets, which is very oftentimes has to be administered in a hospital. It's over 90% fat. They drink olive oil instead of orange juice for breakfast. And what they found is that you don't need to be that drastic. You can go on a modified Atkins diet kind of a thing where 75% of your calories are coming from fat. And that's actually nearly perfect with a ketogenic diet, unless you're eating chicken breast. But if you're eating, ribeye steaks and eggs and healthy dairy, 75 to 80% of your calories are going to come from fat. Just being on a carnivore diet, which puts you into a level of ketosis. And we're discovering that you don't have to be deep into ketosis. You don't have to have ketones at 5 or 6 or 7. You could just be in nutritional ketosis, 0.8, 0.9, 1.0, and experience the benefits of that. I'm currently on the last day of a 5-day water fast.
That's right. Yep.
Which is something we can definitely talk about. And my ketones, they're in the mid 2s, high 1s, mid 2s over the last 48 hours. I checked them a couple of times. But anything above, technically nutritional ketosis is 0.5 milligrams per deciliter. Millimoles. 0.5 and above is nutritional ketosis. But I think benefits are best seen at 0.8, 0.9 and above. And you don't have to go deeper and deeper into ketosis to benefit from it. Now, there is a cancer story that we can set aside right now. There are, something called in in people who are using this for cancer in order to starve cancer cells. They try to attain a certain ketone glucose index that requires higher levels. But again, that's using it as a treatment,
as a therapy,
as opposed to a lifestyle, right?
Oh, okay. So what made you decide to do the 5-day fast? Is this something you do like once a year or quarterly or just out of the blue?
Yeah, no, I've done it many times before, and sometimes you get together with your buddies and you start talking, start talking shit, and you just say, yeah, why don't we go carnivore for a month? All right, then and you do a challenge, right?
Yeah.
And all right, well, why don't we do a fast? Well, yeah, you challenging me? Yes. and then my buddy Chris says, yeah, we're going to do a fast. It's going to be water, no coffee.
Ooh.
And I was like, ooh,
Ooh.
this is rough. So this was the first time I did a multi-day fast without coffee in my life. And
Wow.
I am a self-proclaimed coffee addict, junkie. I love coffee. But I did it. 5 days, no coffee. Gave myself a 2-day migraine. It was very difficult. This was the hardest fast I ever did, and it had nothing to do with food. Matter of fact, I'm on day 5, and it's the easiest day of all of them.
Wow.
But the coffee withdrawal was difficult, very, very difficult. And, it's never good to be addicted to anything.
Sure.
There's a lot of benefits to coffee. We can look at the research, and the overwhelming majority of the research is showing that coffee is actually good for you, but it's addictive.
Right. Yeah.
And I can't imagine anything addictive is something that is,
Yeah, you'd like
and
to
it's
keep
certainly
that
not
aspect under
carnivore.
control.
Yeah. Coffee is certainly not carnivore. So
do you feel, so are you going to, you're almost certainly going to start drinking coffee again when this ends. I know you love it. You just said that. Or are you going to try to stay off it for as long as possible and minimize?
Oh, no, I'm bringing it back as quickly as I can.
Okay, that's what I figured. That's so funny.
Most people know that staying hydrated is essential to nearly every bodily function, but 75% of Americans still do not consume enough fluid daily. As we age, bodily changes make staying hydrated even harder, especially without artificial additives or excess sugars. That's where Native Path comes in with extra help. Native Path's Hydrate is not just another drink mix. It's a thoughtfully designed formula packed with BCAAs and all 9 essential amino acids to help with muscle recovery and overall vitality. Plus, it's completely sugar-free and 100% natural. With their Native Hydrate product, you can fuel your body with essential electrolytes at the cellular level for overall vitality. Unlike other hydration drink mixes that are designed for marathon runners and contain upwards of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, Native Hydrate contains just 230 milligrams of sodium for optimal daily hydration. It's free of artificial flavors, sugars, and dyes. It's only 5 calories per serving, and every order comes with a 360-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free. Visit nativehydrate.com/co-movement to see what Native Hydrate could do for your health. Again, that is nativehydrate.com/co-movement.
Did you notice any other benefits? Was there any aspect of anything that happened to you that you really liked?
Yeah.
Weight loss, less inflammation. I don't know.
Yeah. So, fasting is long been shown to be benefit to creating some physiological changes very rapidly in your body, improving insulin sensitivity, decreasing fatty liver, kind of reigniting or causing you to get rid of old dying cells faster and replacing them once you refeed, getting rid of what we call senescent cells. People call that autophagy. So there's a lot of, science-based reasons that you could benefit from doing an extended fast. But remember, a fast is acute, right? You're going to fast for 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. 7 days, 11 days, whatever it is. And the benefits can be quick and dramatic, which means the benefits can be reversed quickly and dramatically once you start refeeding. So it's not a long-term strategy for anything, but it can be a great kickoff for people looking to dramatically reduce liver enzymes for fatty liver, dramatically improve their insulin sensitivity, restore what is called metabolic flexibility, which is the ability to become a fat burner and a sugar burner and a fat burner and a sugar burner, and to alternate back and forth between those, to change some aspects of your appetite. So there's a lot of benefits to fasting. I think there's not danger. I think there's risk that people take once they do a multi-day fast and they're like, oh, I lost 15 pounds or something like that. That's not real weight loss.
Right.
That's you're going to reinflate real quick. That's water. It's a lot of water. Partly because you have no glycogen, right? Sure. Glycogen is very water dependent, but there'll be some atrophy. But once you get deeper into ketosis, ketones, beta hydroxybutyrate produced in the body have a tendency to create a muscle preserving effect, which makes evolutionary sense. But the mental benefits. So the first 2 days I was zonked. It just took a while for it took a while for me to about 48 hours to. So Monday I woke up just fine because I can fast. But around 3 o'clock, I started to get the coffee withdrawal headache. I went to bed with a migraine. Tuesday, I had brain fog the whole day, which means my blood sugar dropped and my ketones didn't really elevate. I woke up on Wednesday super early after a great night's sleep, and I went straight to the gym. I had so much energy. I felt so. That means I was in nutritional ketosis. I had energy. My brain was no longer thinking that it needed fuel. It started to dump body fat, started to break down body fat, and started to use it as fuel, and it recognizes that there's plenty of it. So hunger just goes away. That's why I always say that the first day of a multi-day fast is the hard day. The last day is the easiest day. Most people who commit to 5-day fasts wind up doing 6 or 7. They just kind of keep going because they feel so good. And being in ketosis feels good. It feels really good.
I agree.
No question. Have you ever done a multi-day fast, Andy?
Yeah, I've done 7 days, and a couple of 5 days, and a few 3-day. Yep, over the years, but 7-day was the longest. And I agree with everything you said. I mean, the first 2 to 3 days are tough, and then after that, you start feeling good. You have plenty of energy, and it's shocking how not hungry you are, considering the fact that you haven't eaten in 4 or 5 days. By the end of it, I think I was more than anything just bored and excited to have taste, again. So I was really looking forward to eating at the end of all of my fasts. But yeah, not from hunger. My body was doing great on the stored body fat and ketones. Everything was happy.
I know. And anyone who knows Andy would look at him and say, what body fat? But even if you're 6% body fat,
Really?
An endurance athlete, and you're probably around 8%, right?
About that. Yep.
You're about 8%. You have plenty of fat. I mean, 8% is plenty.
Sure, that's at least 12 pounds of fat around my body.
Correct. It's hundreds of thousands of calories of energy that you could tap into. And again, we didn't talk about the psychological thing. I mentioned before the guys are challenging each other. Well, there's something to that. Having a discipline, having a just that ability to not be so dependent on such a comfortable life that we have. We're so blessed to be living in the world that we live in today. We're so blessed to be in a world of abundance here in the Western world, where anything that's ever been called food over the last 10,000 years is available to us at arm's reach, super cheap in our supermarket, 24 hours a day. That comfort we have, right now it's 28 degrees outside, but it's 72 degrees in this room. So that comfort allows cells in our body. So if we think about, every single cell in your body is going to replace itself. Some people say once every 3 months,
Right.
or I've heard as much as once a year. But we know the digestive tract is brand new every 3 weeks. We know that you're going to go through 400 pounds of skin in the shower in your lifetime. We know that every cell replaces each other at different rates depending on the kind of cell that we're talking about. Some of those cells, because of the comfort and abundance and the fact that we feed all those cells, the older ones that kind of need to be replaced stick around longer, and they're more dysfunctional. And dysfunctional cells are kind of risky, right? So dysfunctional cells can mutate. Mutated cells can become cancer cells. Cancer cells can multiply. Mm-hmm. And when you go through a fast like this, you go through what people call autophagy, right? You kind of take the weak cells, the old ones, the senescent cells, as they call them, and you just kick them off the cliff, like let them go, let them die. The younger, healthier ones have more resilience. But then once they kick off and die, they're replaced once you start refeeding. So think carefully when you do a fast. You don't want to run to Taco Bell and get a bag of Doritos to start refeeding. That first week especially, you're going to be using that food to replace those senescent cells. If you want to
build the next generation.
Yeah, you want to regenerate with good stuff. So choose your food wisely when you refeed. And even, research has been done where they do MRIs of people who've done a 5 or 7 day fast. Their bone marrow can shrink up to 40%. Those are the hematopoietic cells, the cells that make blood cells. Yep. And they make white blood cells. They make immune cells. So your immune system theoretically can shrink by 40% during your fast. Now, if you're fasting forever, that could be a problem. But if you're fasting for 5 days, now what's going to happen is that bone marrow reflates after like 1 day of refeeding. And it's reflating, creating a whole brand new immune system. 40% of your immune system is essentially brand new. So if you do have autoimmune challenges and you do have immune system challenges, fasting can be quite remarkable for replenishing the youthfulness of your immune system, if that's a good description.
Yeah, that's one of the main reasons why I've done a few fasts in the past. I actually did one, maybe a 3-day fast, I think it was, a year or two ago, and I was taking some supplements that were supposed to be anti-senolytic or, that help you clear senescent cells out of the body. Whether they actually worked or not, I don't know. But my goal with the fast was to get some of that benefit, to clear out the senescent cells and replace them with new, fresh ones, and be really careful about what I was eating when I came back after the fast to repopulate with the best material I could. So
really a lot of people in our space, Andy, and even conversations we've had over the months doing this podcast. And doing this podcast is a lot of fun. I really enjoy it because these are conversations that we need to have, and if people can benefit from it, that's great. No one should consider this conversation as being medical advice, of course.
Oh no.
But knowing what your options are when it comes to lifestyle change is a very good thing. So trying things that you hear when it comes to diet, exercise, etc. These aren't things that are going to hurt you. They're things that you can try, and if you benefit from them, great. But I'm sorry, Andy, just refresh my memory on your closing thought there. What I lost my train.
Oh, no, I just said that I had used the fast to get rid of senescent cells and to repopulate with healthy ones. That was like the main purpose of my last fast that I did.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So the thing to do for everyone listening is to, if you've never fasted before, just do it for 24 hours. I mean, anyone can do it for 24 hours. Remember all the grandmothers when we were growing up, they'd be like, the kid doesn't want to eat his vegetables. Mm-hmm. And, what does he want? He wants French fries. Give him French fries. Like, God forbid the kid goes to bed without eating. Like, that's the worst thing for a grandmother. Like, they're going to get sick. No, they're not.
Be
Send them
totally
to bed
fine.
without dinner. It's okay.
All through our past, we missed meals all the time if we couldn't find something or, kill whatever we were hunting. Sometimes we went days without. Let's see. Before we wrap this up, I did want to ask about just some of the concerns people have with carnivore, and I was thinking of maybe I've got a few of these, like missing out on micronutrients. So we always hear like fruits and vegetables to get your vitamins and minerals. How does meat and animal products compare on a micronutrient comparison to fruits and vegetables?
Okay,
And I'll throw also fiber in. That's one of the other concerns, is if you're not getting your fiber, what's going to happen to your digestive tract?
Okay, so when it comes to micronutrients found in food, whether we're talking about meat products or plant food, we measure what's in there, right? So you can say how much of these nutrients are available in a pound of broccoli, and you could do the same thing with a ribeye steak. Now, with vegetation, with plant food, first of all, no mammal on planet Earth can digest fiber. And a lot of the nutrients that are measured in our fruits and vegetables are locked away in that fiber.
Okay.
And therefore, you don't have access to them. And because we discussed before about plant defense chemicals, fiber is not a plant defense chemical at all, but it certainly locks away whatever's inside the fiber. So we eat, people call vegetables low carb. No, they're all carb, but they're low carb because a lot of the carbohydrates are locked away in the fiber you can't digest.
Yep.
And therefore, and of course, fruits have less fiber than vegetables, but that's the reason why vegetables are considered low carb. And locked away in that fiber are some of the nutrients that are measured. And in addition to that, the plant defense chemicals are there to irritate your gut and create a difficulty with absorbing the nutrients that might be available. So there are oxalates, there are lectins, there are other components that prevent us from actually absorbing. So oxalates, for example, make it more difficult for us to bring in our magnesium and calcium and these other micronutrients. So even though their micronutrients are very much present in plant food, a lot of times it's working the chemicals in the plants. And again, I use the word chemicals. The nutrients or the components of a plant prevent us from even absorbing them. Now, where do the nutrients in the plants come from? Well, they come from the soil, right? So from the soil, sun hits the plant grows, it makes a fruit or a vegetable, and we eat it. But it's soil nutrition, came from the soil. All right, well, when a cow eats grass, it's getting its nutrients from the soil. So all of the micronutrients in the soil get into the vegetable and they get into the cow. But my steak doesn't have anything preventing me from absorbing what's in that steak.
Yep.
So the cow eats the grass, which has the nutrition from the soil, and really the quality of our soil is everything, right? It's everything. Everything about our health is about the soil. And that gets stored into the meat of the animal, highly concentrated. There are no micronutrients found in plants that you can't get from beef. None. But there are many micronutrients you cannot get from plants that we absolutely need that you can't get at all from plants. So for example, if you're vegan, you better be checking your vitamin B12. You better be checking your iron. You better be checking your omega-3, because those are things you can't get from a plant-based diet. And very often people are deficient, and that causes significant health problems. But there's other things. There's choline and things found in egg yolk that are just not going to be available in plant food. And I'm not going to rattle off the half a dozen or dozen or so micronutrients that are super important that we get from animal products that we can't get from plant products.
Right. But there are a lot of them. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect. I think that's probably one of the biggest concerns that people have when they think of carnivore is, how are we going to get all of our micronutrients? But I like the way you described it as, from the soil to the plant. And then the cow's job is almost to take all of those nutrients from the plant and turn it into something that we can actually use, which is its muscle meat, or whatever other animal we're talking about. That's really cool. If we can hit just this last, well, I think we have a pretty hard stop at 10 o'clock, right? You're getting ready to go?
Hold on. Let me double check. No, I can go over.
Okay. Well, just one other concern that I hear a lot is the red meat causes cancer narrative. So I don't know all the research surrounding this, but you're always, if you tell people that you eat a lot of red meat, there's always that question of, doesn't that cause colon cancer? That seems to be a really prevalent narrative. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think what they're doing, all right, so if you're going to choose to avoid red meat, you're a person who's making health choices, whether it be mistaken or not. You're somebody paying attention a little bit to your health, right? You like, I'm making a decision. I'm not eating red meat. So there's a good chance you're more likely to exercise. You're more likely to, not eat fast food or highly processed foods. You're just more likely to make different decisions. And these studies are always epidemiological studies. They're questionnaires that are sent out to 10,000 people, and we're supposed to trust what's in the questionnaire as being accurate. And let's just assume it is. So there's something called a healthy user bias in people who make better choices in life are probably going to have less cancer than people who just include everything in their diet. And the truth is, in those questionnaires, they consider a pepperoni pizza as red meat.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous, right? A hamburger is red meat. Of course it is, but it's a lot of other things too.
Sure.
So I always think about that documentary Game Changers, where they considered, eating Kentucky Fried Chicken on a regular basis as being eating meat, not being plant-based.
Yeah.
Meantime,
not considering the breading and then the
soybean oil
that
fried
it was
bread with a little bit of chicken in the middle. I mean, it's not. So I've yet to see apples to apples comparison of a vegan diet with somebody on a carnivore diet and do that epidemiological long-term study. I don't know if it has been done or can be done. I think it's being done more now, but first of all, it doesn't make evolutionary sense whatsoever. But at the same time, from an evolutionary standpoint, cancer is something you get later in life. And, evolution doesn't really care how long you live. It only cares that you live long enough to make babies.
Right.
So I don't want to dismiss it offhand, but there's problems with nutritional epidemiology that, I don't think should be discarded. And just my personal experience and my clinical experience is, if every aspect of your health improves when you do a carnivore diet, objectively and subjectively improves, how could that be bad for you? You know what I mean? I just don't, it doesn't fit. It doesn't square with me, from a logic standpoint.
For sure. And just evolutionarily, we know that a lot of humans have eaten in this way for a long, long time. And the outcomes were fine. They thrived, they flourished, and here we are today as a result. So it makes evolutionary sense to me that we can get away with this.
For sure.
One last one. What about with athletes, especially who are trying to optimize performance in a sport or something? What do you think about sports performance, and does a ketogenic carnivore type diet support that? Or are there some athletes that are going to need to use carbohydrates as a fuel source or to help with recovery or something like that?
I think it's a hell of a lot easier in a sport that requires explosive strength and speed to just dramatically benefit from carbohydrate and glycogen, availability and all of that. There's no shortage of athletes in the endurance world and in the strength and explosiveness world who did go carnivore, ketogenic, and thrive. But those are people who took the time to become so metabolically adapted to that physiology. They because if you do it short term, there's no way. If you go from being just a normal standard American diet athlete and then try to switch to carnivore, and then in 3 months expect your performance to match what your performance was before. No, there's not enough time to become metabolically adapted to. Some people say it could take 6, 9, 12 months to become metabolically adapted. So there's no shortage of anecdotes of athletes that do absolutely fantastic on a carnivore diet, but it's easier to carbo load and follow that pattern. And one thing we didn't discuss as much is on the fiber story. There's clearly a benefit to bacterial diversity in our gastrointestinal system, right? We call it the microbiome. And fiber is a food to feed your microbiome. Now, your microbiome is not you, but we are kind of dependent on a healthy microbiome. And biological or that diversity increases with fiber because you're giving the bacteria benefit there. However, this is a question. A lot of people say, well, look at this 300-pound, well-muscled gorilla that eats nothing but vegetation, 95% vegetation-based diet. They eat 16 hours a day, and they're all muscle. The reason why that doesn't translate to humans is because a gorilla has a very large intestines, yep, and a very small intestines, and humans have the largest small intestines and one of the smallest large intestines. So the large intestines is where the majority of our bacteria live, and that's where fiber is fermented by the microbiome. And what that bacteria does is it gives us short chain fatty acids in exchange for the fiber. So we're we have a good relationship there.
So really, that gorilla is eating a high fat diet because all of that fiber is just turning into short chain fatty acids.
That's right.
He's eating like a keto diet.
Correct.
Once it gets into his system.
And they manufacture through that fermentation process, they manufacture amino acids to build muscle. Mm-hmm. Whereas now if you try to feed the gorilla meat, its small intestines doesn't have the enzyme breakdown capacity to deal with a diet that's predominantly carnivorous. So the small intestines is where we break down protein and fat, from meat products or carnivore-based products. And then your large intestines where you're dealing with the fiber and everything that happens through fermentation. So they have this giant colon, so they should have a giant diet that is vegetation. They have this tiny little small intestine, so very little of their food should come from animal products. And we're the opposite. We're the exact opposite. So if we eat nothing but vegetation like a gorilla 16 hours a day, our large intestines can't handle that capacity. And we start getting all kinds of problems with loose stool, diarrhea, constipation, IBS, colitis, all of the things associated with just overwhelming that system, I believe. So I think, with going to that philosophy of we can thrive in any environment, if we're going to be in this American environment, a paleo-style diet, that is very abundant in sufficient protein, healthy animal products, some vegetables and some fruits, I think is just fine for most people. And going on the more extreme diets, like a carnivore diet, might be something you want to do for short spurts. And there are people who do it ongoing for years. You can do whatever you want, whatever resonates with you. I just don't think you have to.
Yep, that makes sense to me. I mean, I eat an omnivorous diet also. I think that the animal foods in my diet are the most nutritious and the most beneficial to me. But I still include some plant. I like dark chocolate. I like strawberries. I like coffee. One of the reasons that we eat is for enjoyment purposes, and that's it's important to me to enjoy what I eat also. So,
the 3 guys that I did this challenge with, 2 of us really had this positive experience. One of us wasn't like he didn't feel any benefits, like he just didn't feel it. But I would say that it's just always worth trying something different, seeing what works for you. One of the guys was saying how he hates food. He just wishes he could not eat at all. Like he wants to feel like this all the time. And I'm like, no, I love food. I love food. Some of my greatest memories of traveling with my family are memories that are at a table. I grew up in my kitchen. I guess being, Greek descent, food is very important to us. But I also have seen how that lifestyle of living in the kitchen and having food be such an important part of your life work against you, especially in ethnic cultures where not only is there an abundance of healthy food, there's an abundance of horrible food.
Yep.
So I agree with you. Food should be enjoyed. And there's this concept of, eat whole food, not too much. You know what I mean? And going carnivore is a great way to not eat too much. When you think about a carnivorous animal like a lion, it's going to take down a gazelle, eat it, take a nap, and it's going to be 1 meal a day for that lion.
That's right.
But the gorilla is eating 16 hours a day because it's got to constantly shovel food into its mouth. So if you're going to be vegan and you're going to have 6 small meals, multiple times a day, first of all, who's got time to think about preparing 6 small meals a day? Like with the busyness of my life, I barely have time to think about 2 meals a day.
Yeah. It's an awesome thing about eating a carnivore or a whole food diet is the satiety of it all.
Yeah.
But I think we hit this topic pretty well here today, Dr. G. So
for sure,
thank you
super fun.
Very much for all the insights and some of those long illustrations of these concepts. It was absolutely beautiful. For the listeners, where can they find you, Dr. G, if they want to learn more about you and what you do?
Anywhere social media at Dr. Stephen G. So drsteveng.com is my website, but at Dr. Stephen G is where you find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X, whatever.
Yeah.
Instagram
awesome
is my biggest. Instagram and YouTube are my biggest platforms.
And it's fantastic content, so we hope our listeners go check that out. So we'll sign off. Dr. G, I'll see you on the next one. Everyone, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And have a good day, guys.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting our sponsors, Native Path Supplements and Lombardi Chiropractic. Your support helps us to bring you 2 new episodes each month. See the show notes for more details and a nice discount from our sponsors. Thank you, and see you next time on the Co-Movement Gym Podcast.